Hey, everybody, welcome back to my messy desk. Happy New Year. Man, I have not been on YouTube. I have not been on really anything. I tell you what, I am the most extroverted introvert that I have ever met. Okay. I am so into it when I am with people. I love people. I love being with people. Um man, but when I don't have downtime, I get wonky, okay? And after Christmas, this year um it was amazing. God just made it to where I could um kind of do the Christmas party for our church. And we did the Daughters of the King, and it was absolutely miraculous. And God was with me, and it was wonderful. A huge event. Okay. And then after that was, all of the Christmas events. And they were wonderful. I love it. But then afterwards, when I don't have downtime between the gatherings, I can't keep my thoughts and I get almost sick. I'm not sick, but I was sick, And by the end of December, I was just um, ill, and I'm kind of just now recovering. But I tell you what, you know, I know for a lot of people, the year has started out kind of bleak and, wherever you're at. I have been reading the story of Gideon and I just find it so encouraging. And after I read it, I kind of, took a pause from what we were studying in our Bible study on Sundays to, go over the story of Gideon. And I wanted to bring it to you today because it is just so encouraging and you're going to love it. Okay. So um, we'll be in Judges 6. But before that, I wanted to tell you that I, for the first time, um, watched Rocky. Okay. In November, which if you if you are younger than millennial, you probably don't know what Rocky is. It's an 80s movie. Sylvester Stallone plays a boxer, okay? And there are 6 Rockies and 3 Creeds, okay? So kind of 9 movies in the Rocky franchise. And they are so good. And it's kind of ridiculous. If you are I call myself a grandma millennial. Okay. If you are a grandma millennial or older, we are looked at as ridiculous if you have not seen Rocky. Okay. Because everyone has seen Rocky. I have not. Okay. And one thing I've realized about being, an obsessive compulsive, okay, is that you find what you like and then you just stick with that, so I have not seen many movies, but the movies that I have seen, I know them like the back of my hand. Okay. And that is the same with books, the same with music, all of these things. I don't have a wide range of things that I have seen and heard and all this, but the things that I have, I know. So anyway, I just saw Rocky at the end of November, which if you have seen it, you know that everything begins for him at Thanksgiving. So is there a better time to watch Rocky than around Thanksgiving? And I would even go to say we have Christmas movies. I will categorize Rocky as a Thanksgiving movie. Okay. Anyway, this has to do with Gideon because if you haven't seen Rocky, Rocky is a boxer. Okay. The movie starts, Rocky 1 starts with, he is boxing. Okay. And he's just boxing in an amateur fight and he wins. So obviously, he's a good boxer. He has a gift. He is unknown. He boxes in his free time. It's a hobby. Except for he does make, money off of these fights, but it's not his main income. Okay. What he does for main income, because he is, he's a nobody. He says that, of himself. He's a nobody at this point. He is broke. And so he takes a job as, a, um, his coach later on calls it a leg breaker, where, if you owe the mob money and you don't pay, you get your legs broke or your thumb or whatever. So he's doing that, but he still, you can tell, is kind of a good-hearted guy, which he is. He is a good-hearted guy. Anyway, um, so he's a nobody in the beginning, and he lives in a ratty apartment, and he even, just the way he talks and the way he is, he's just uneducated and a lowly human being. Okay, but he has this gift. He has this gift of fighting, and he's been boxing at this gym for 6 years, and he goes into box one day, and his locker is taken by somebody else, and basically he's been kicked out, and Mickey, the coach, tells him it's because he's this leg breaker, right? Well, anyway, so he's just at a low. He's at an all-time low in his life. And his life really hasn't been anything up until then. But he has the gift. He has the gift of boxing. And so he's still doing that. He's still doing that when he can. Well, in the meantime, there is a professional boxer, the best boxer in the world at the time, and his name is Apollo Creed. Okay, and he is going to do this big fight, and it's going to be on January 1st, but the guy gets hurt and he can't box him, and so Apollo Creed comes up with this idea to take a nobody and to give them a chance in the ring with the heavyweight champion of the world. Okay. And so, everybody thinks it's a stupid idea, but he says this is the American dream. And so he's going to do it knowing that he's going to pummel the guy. Right. Well, so he's going through all of the, apparently there's like a book that, kind of had boxers in their profiles. And so he comes across Rocky, who his name was the Italian Stallion. And he says, Apollo Creed versus the Italian Stallion. And so, by complete, chance, I mean, like 1 in a million chance, Rocky gets called up to fight the heavyweight champion of the world. Okay. This absolute nobody gets called up to fight the heavyweight champion of the world. And the movie is all about, he has no chance. And then him, taking his gift and training and developing that gift to where he will have the best shot that he can possibly have against the champion of the world, knowing he'll probably not win anyway. Okay, but that he's gonna try his best. And then he gets in there, and I won't tell you the end, but it's a great movie. Okay, and it is that picture of the least of these going up against the best of these, and you know beating the odds. Okay, so that is a worldly story that points to a biblical story. Okay, that really happened. Okay, Rocky, it's I love Rocky because not only is it just an inspirational story, but also it kind of mirrors what Sylvester Stallone was going through in his real life, that the least likely came out on top. Okay. And, that is such a dream of people that, we think that is a fantasy and it doesn't happen, But with God, first of all, anything is possible. And here in Judges 6, we have a real story where it really did happen. And so I just want to read that to you now and sort of set your sights on that, if you are in a rock bottom place, with God, anything is possible, okay? But it's not going to be you doing it. You're not going to get yourself out and you're not going to win the fight. It's going to be God glorifying himself through you. And that is glorious. That is glorious. That is good for us as well. So let's go ahead and start with Judges 6. 1, and I'm just going to read this first part, and you're going to see how you know Gideon lives in a mess and he is a mess. Okay, does that sound relatable? Then the sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hands of Midian 7 years. The power of Midian prevailed against Israel. Because of Midian, the sons of Israel made for themselves dens, which were in the mountains and caves and strongholds. For it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites would come up with the Amalekites and the sons of the east and go against them. So they would camp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza and leave no sustenance in Israel, as well as no sheep, ox, or donkey. For they would come up with their livestock and their tents, and they would come in like locusts for number. Both they and their camels were innumerable, and they came into the land to devastate it. So Israel bought so Israel was brought very low because of Midian, and the sons of Israel cried to the Lord. Now it came about when the sons of Israel cried to the Lord on account of Midian, that the Lord sent a prophet to the sons of Israel, and he said to them, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, it was I who brought you up from Egypt and brought you out from the house of slavery. I delivered you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hands of your oppressors, and dispossessed them before you, and gave you their lands. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You shall not fear the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live, but you have not obeyed me." So Gideon is an Israelite. And Israel has yet again done evil in the sight of the Lord. Okay, and every time they do that, which is every time, they find themselves in a mess. God puts them in a mess. Okay, so this is us. Okay, we are in a mess that we've put ourselves in. Okay, we live in a mess, and we are a mess ourselves as individuals. Okay, so we live in a mess as a nation. Um, I'm willing to bet your house is a proverbial mess. Okay, even if your house is spotless, nobody's family is that family that you see on Instagram. Okay, that family with the white house. Okay, no one is that. You're a mess, okay? And then we are all messes, okay? Even on our best day, we as individuals are a mess, okay? Because even if we have all of our stuff together, which who has their stuff together, okay? Even if you have all of your stuff together, you still have thoughts and feelings and worries and all of this stuff that's just a freaking mess, right? So, there are unicorns who are like the Apollo Creeds, okay? Who have their stuff together, okay? But for most of us, we live in a mess and we are a mess, okay? To the glory of God. So here, we can totally relate to living in a mess. We are a mess, okay? And then we have Midian, who, they are coming against Israel. Okay. There has been, you know, it is things of Israel's own doing and not of their own doing that all of this is coming against them. Okay. Can you relate? So what do we do? Nothing. Okay, we do nothing. Okay, and you can do nothing. I don't know about you, but every time I try to do things in my own power, it gets worse. Okay, so let's see what happens. There's a man named Gideon, and let's see what happens to the man named Gideon who lives in a mess and is a mess himself. Okay, so now we're in we're still in chapter 6, but um we are in verse 11. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat under the oak that was in Oprah, which belonged to Joash the Bezrite. As his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress in order to save it from the Midianites, the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O valiant warrior." Then Gideon said to him, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles which our father told us about, saying, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord looked at him and said, "Go in this your strength and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. Have I not sent you?" He said to him, "O Lord, how shall I deliver Israel? Behold, my family is in the least in Manasseh. Behold, my family is the least in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's house." But the Lord said to him, "Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat Midian as one man." So, all right, so we have the mess that's living in the mess, okay? And God comes to this mess who is hiding. He is threshing wheat in the wine press, okay, and it's so that he is hidden, from the Midianites. Okay, so he's not a valiant warrior. He is a scared, uncourageous mess. Okay, and so God meets him where he's at. God meets him where he's at. Okay. And he says, "Greetings, valiant warrior." Right. And Gideon is saying, "You don't know who you're talking to," obviously. And so this is so good. Okay. Because wherever you're at, okay, um, Gideon here is not, um, he is not strong and courageous. He is not serving at church, and I mean, he's not doing the checklist that we think that we should be doing in order to be good with the Lord. Okay. And yet the Lord comes to him and says, "Greetings, valiant warrior," right? Because Gideon a valiant warrior? No, but God is going to work through him. And God is the valiant warrior, and he is going to work through Gideon, and be that valiant warrior through him. And through Gideon, God is going to do great things. Okay, he's going to be the Rocky against Apollo Creed, right? And this is a real story, and it really happened. And that is just so miraculous. Okay, so let's continue. So Gideon said to him, "If now I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Please do not depart from me here until I come back to you and bring out my offering and lay it before you." And he said, "I will remain until you return." Then Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from an ephah of flour. He put the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot and brought them out to him under the oak and presented them. The angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and unleavened bread and lay them on this rock and pour out the broth." And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put out the meat of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. And fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Then the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. When Gideon saw that he was an angel of the Lord, he said, "Alas, O Lord God, for now I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." The Lord said to him, "Peace to you. Do not fear. You shall not die." Then Gideon built an altar there to the Lord and named it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day, it is still an Oprah of the, I say a bit, Abizrites. Anyway, then. Now, on the same night, the Lord said to him, "Take your father's bull and a second bull, 7 years old, and pull down the altar of Baal, which belongs to your father, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it." So now, the unstrong and courageous, okay, the mess that lives in a mess, is now being asked to do something courageous, okay? And this is scary, okay? He's being asked to tear down the idol that his people have been worshiping, okay? Not fun. Not fun, because people get mad when you do that, okay? So now, is this going to happen because Gideon is a "Greetings, O valiant warrior"? No. Gideon is a mess, living in a mess, and he is non-courageous, uncourageous. He is not strong and courageous, okay? But God is with him, and he is enabling him to do this. And so, where you're at in your life, you're not strong and courageous. You're not. You're weak, and you're scared, and you're a mess. But when you take that step toward the Lord, when you say, "I am weak and you are strong, I need you to do this through me," and God is so gracious. He is so gracious, because you see, Gideon is asking for signs here, and we know that in the New Testament, Jesus says, "Those who demand signs are a wicked generation," okay? But that's us. We are that, okay? We don't love our neighbor as ourselves. We don't have God as our one God. We're not following the commandments, we want to, but we need Jesus doing that in us and through us, okay? So, he's getting ready to tear down the idols, okay, that his culture has been worshiping, and he is only going to be able to do this because God is with him right now, okay. So let's continue. Okay, now on the same night the Lord said to him, "Take your father's bull." Oh, we read that. Okay, never mind. Okay. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as the Lord had spoken to him. And because he was too afraid of his father's household and the men of the city to do it by day, he did it by night. When the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was torn down, and the Asherah which was beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar which had been built. They said to one another, "Who did this thing?" And when they searched about and inquired, they said, "Gideon, the son of Joash, did this thing." Then the men of the city said to Joash, "Bring out your son that he may die, for he has torn down the altar of Baal, and indeed he has cut down the Asherah which was beside it." But Joash said to all who stood against him, "Will you contend for Baal, or will you deliver him? Whoever will plead for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him contend for himself, because someone has torn down his altar." Therefore, on that day, he named him Jerubbaal. That is to say, let Baal contend against him, because he had torn down his altar. Okay, so Gideon is now being called Jerubbaal, because they're saying, let Baal contend against him. Okay, so the people, this is Gideon's people, are mad at him and wanting to kill him because he said, he's torn down their worship, their thing that they're worshiping, and that has to be done. Okay, that has to be done. We are worshiping things that are not God. are not Jesus. There is one God, there is one Son, there is one Holy Spirit, there are one God, okay? And that is the only real and true God. And if anybody's worshiping anything other than that, God is not with us. God is not fighting for us. We are a wicked nation, and we're wicked nation. We're a wicked nation. We're wicked people no matter what. We need Jesus. We need Jesus to make us that new creation when we come to him. When you come to Jesus, the old is gone, the new has come. You'll only understand it if you experience that. And the Bible says, call to me and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. So you don't know it. Just call out to God. Call out to God. You live in a mess. You are a mess. Call out to God. Okay. So he has gone in the strength that he has, which Gideon has done, okay? But he has now the courage and strength of the Lord that's enabling him to do these terrifying things, okay? And he still just did it at night. He still just did it at night so that no one would see. He was still afraid, but he wouldn't have done it at all if God was not with him, okay? So let's continue. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the sons of the east assembled themselves, and they crossed over and camped in the valley of Jezreel. So the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and the Abizrites were called together to follow him. He sent messengers throughout Manasseh, and they also were called together to follow him. And he sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. Then Gideon said to God, if you will deliver Israel through me, as you have spoken, behold, I will put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, and it is dry on all the ground, then I will know that you will deliver Israel through me, as you have spoken. And it was so. When he arose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece, he drained the dew from the fleece, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, do not let your anger burn against me, that I may speak once more. Please let me make a test once more with the fleece. Let it now be dry only on the fleece, and let there be dew on the ground. God did so that night, for it was dry only on the fleece, and the dew was on the ground. Okay, so he has now, tested God twice, three times. He even after he did this courageous act that he never could have done, even after coming face to face with the Lord, okay, he's now asking for these signs that God's going to be with him. And it's not about the signs, okay? Like I said, in the New Testament, Jesus says, a wicked generation asks for signs, okay? But God is gracious here, and this is not about the signs. This is to show us how weak we are, okay? Because even when we come face to face with the Lord, even when we have miraculous encounters, when we have things that have happened to us that have saved our lives, that we can't explain anything other than God, the most miraculous thing that has happened in my life is Jesus changing me when I came to become a Christian. That the things that I could not stop doing before, the ways that I was, that I didn't even know were just wicked, changed. These things changed. I became aware of them, and he changed them, and I am a new person completely. And that is miraculous. That is miraculous. And even when things like that happen in our lives, we forget and we ask for signs, and we wonder where God is, and we wonder if he's ever been there, and we wonder what he's going to do. We forget so easily. And these signs are to show us that we are just like Gideon, and we forget, and we have encounters, and then we forget him, and we're weak, and we can't do anything without Jesus doing it through us. Okay. So on to 7. We're just going to read 6 and 7. Okay. So so God has now promised, I am with you, okay? Which he's had two signs. He's had two signs, and he's still going to be scared, guys. And that is why we don't need signs. We need prayer and we need the word daily, okay? For to think about, being at a table. Like when I think about being in the Bible, okay, when you're reading the word of the Lord, it's like you're at a table, just having a meal with Jesus and communing with Jesus, and when you're praying, being in your word and praying, it's like walking on a path arm in arm with the Lord, and you're trusting him that he's going to show you where to go and teach you his paths. And that every time in your flesh, you're going to try to pull away, which you're going to, he's going to tighten the grip and keep you there, in a loving walk, a loving meal with the Lord. And that is just so beautiful. And I love that grace and mercy, that he has for us as his creation. So, okay, now it's going to happen. All right. Then Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and camped beside the spring of Harod. And the camp of Midian was on the north side of them by the hill of Morah in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give Midian into their hands, for Israel would become boastful, saying, my own power has delivered me. Now therefore, come, proclaim in the hearing of the people, say, whoever is afraid and trembling, let him return and depart from Mount Gilead. So 22,000 people returned, but 10,000 remained. Then the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Therefore, it shall be that he of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, he shall go with you, but everyone of whom I say to you, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, you shall separate everyone who laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, as well as everyone who kneels to drink. One second, turning the page that is stuck together. Okay. Gideon went up by the way of those who lived. I'm sorry. I turned 2 pages. Okay. Now the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people kneeled to drink water. The Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver you with the 300 men who lapped, and will give the Midianites into your hands. So let all the other people go, each man to his home. So the 300 men took the people's provisions and their trumpets into their hands, and Gideon sent all the other men of Israel, each to his tent, but retained the 300 men. And the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. Okay, so the Lord has stacked the odds against Gideon. Okay, he said, greetings, you valiant warrior, to a man who is a mess and lives in a mess and is not at all a valiant warrior. Okay, because he is going to be with him. And he is going to wear him as a glove. Okay. This story, it says that the Lord clothed himself with Gideon. Okay. That is it. That's how this is going to be done. Okay. And he is going to glorify himself. The Lord is going to glorify himself by using a mess that lives in a mess that is not a valiant warrior. And he is going to glorify himself by having the odds stacked against this non-warrior, okay, who the Lord is going to be a warrior through. So let's continue. I keep losing my spot. Now, the same night, it came about that the Lord said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have given them into your hands. But if you are afraid to go down, go with Porah, your servant, down to the camp. and you will hear what they say. And afterwards, your hands will be strengthened that you may go down against the camp. So he went with Purah, his servant, down to the outpost of the army that was in the camp because he's afraid. He's still afraid, even after the encounter with the Lord, even after the two signs, even after the victory, that he has. The Lord has enabled him to tear down the idols, and he survived. He's still afraid, and the Lord says, "I'm going to give them into your hand." But that wasn't enough. He said, "If you're afraid, take your servant and go down and hear what they say." Okay. And so he was afraid. So he took his servant and he went down to see what they were saying. Now the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the sons of the east were lying in the valley, as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as numerous as the sand of the seashore. When Gideon came, behold, a man was relating a dream to his friend, and he said, "Behold, I had a dream. A loaf of barley bread was tumbling into the camp of Midian, and it came to the tent and struck it so that it fell, and turned it upside down so that the tent lay flat." His friend replied, "This is nothing less than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, the man of Israel. God has given Midian and all the camp into his hand." When Gideon heard the account of the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship. He returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has given the camp of Midian into your hands." He divided the 300 men into three companies, and he put trumpets and empty pitchers into the hands of all of them, with torches inside the pitchers. He said to them, "Look at me and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I and all who are with me blow the trumpet, then you also blow trumpets all around the camp and say, 'For the Lord and for Gideon.'" Okay. So he's heard the dream. He's got some, courage a little bit. Okay. And so he's going to go, and they have trumpets and jars in their hands. Okay. And he says, "Let's go. And when we go, say, 'For the Lord and for Gideon.'" Okay. And that is beautiful. That needs to be our war cry. Okay. "For the Lord and for Angela, J. Reese Bradley. For the Lord and for whoever your name is." Okay. Because we are weak. We're the Gideon. Okay. We're weak. We're afraid. We're, not valiant warriors. Okay. But we are dependent on the Lord. We love the Lord. We have told him, "We submit to you. We're nothing without you. We need your strength. We need you. We need you." For whatever we do, whether it's something of defeating the Midianites like this, or even just getting through our day, we need Jesus. We need Jesus. So the Lord is going to glorify himself and show that anything is possible with God through Gideon. And so the war cry is, "For the Lord and for Gideon," because the glory of the Lord is our good. Okay. We think that our glory is our good, but our glory is not our good. The glory of the Lord is our good. Okay. And so that is our war cry, for the Lord and for Angela. Okay. For the Lord and for whatever your name is, because the Lord's glory is our good. Okay. All right. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the pitchers that were in their hands. When the three companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers, they held the torches in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing, and cried, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Each stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran, crying out as they fled. When they blew 300 trumpets, the Lord set the sword of one. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set the sword of the one against another, even throughout the whole army. And the army fled as far as Bethshittah toward Zerera, as far as the edge of Abel Meholah by Tabath. So they blew their trumpets, they smashed their jars, and the enemy fought itself. Okay, so that is how the Lord has defeated the Midianites through Gideon. He didn't even have to fight. He didn't even have to fight. They blew the trumpets, they smashed the jars, and God made it to where, when they heard that, the enemy defeated itself. Okay, and these are the things. These are the things that we cannot see. Okay, when we're looking at Apollo Creed, okay? When we're looking at Apollo Creed, all we see is how big they are and how small we are, how educated they are and how non-educated we are, what a non-mess they are and how messy we are. That's all we see. Okay? We don't see any way of defeating them because there isn't a way. Okay? There isn't a way. But with the Lord, anything is possible. With the Lord, anything is possible. And when we admit that we are nothing and the Lord is everything and he's the only way that anything's going to be defeated, that's when victory happens. Okay. So the men of Israel were summoned from Naphtali and Asher and all Manasseh, and they pursued Midian. Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against Midian and take the waters before them as far as Bethbara and the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were summoned, and they took the waters as far as Bethbara and the Jordan. They captured the two leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, and they killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and they killed Zeb at the wine press of Zeb. I keep saying Zeb. While they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon from across the Jordan. Okay, and all of this victory happened through a non-warrior, a weak non-warrior who lived in a mess and was a mess himself. Okay, because the Lord clothed himself with Gideon. Okay. And so that is how you are going to be victorious. Okay. First of all, here's the steps. Here's the steps to being victorious in this age of lies. Okay. You can't believe anything that you see on the internet, okay, or on social media or anything. Nothing that you see, you can for sure know that's true, okay, as far as news goes. You can't believe any of it, okay? So we're surrounded by lies. We're surrounded by crazy ideologies that have been infiltrated for decades, okay, that are now coming um, to full fruit, okay, of things that go against natural order of keeping a society together and thriving. We are bombarded with things that are going against life. Okay. AI. Okay. AI alone is threatening humanity. Okay. We don't have to worry because we can't defeat that. Okay. We can't defeat that. There's no way we can do that. But we know that God will use us to do it. Okay. He can wear us as a glove and he can bring about things that none of us see coming. Okay. And he's going to use the least to shame the great. Okay. So, when that guy has the dream and says he had the dream about the barley cake that rolled into the town and flipped all the tents over, the barley was what all the poor people ate. Okay, so it's the least things that are least likely, okay, that are going to come in and shame these things that we think are undefeatable. Okay, because they're not undefeatable. We can't defeat them, But if we empty ourselves out and God fills us with himself, they're done. Okay. And that is victory, guys. I ask you today to be in your word, to be in prayer. That is your white line. Okay. I um, was driving in a storm the other day. Okay. And I can't see anything in the storms. Okay, if you ever see my car in a storm, just stay away, right? Because I when it's dark and rainy, I cannot see, the other cars coming. All I see is the storm and lights. But there's that white line on the side of the road. Okay. I know if I keep my eyes on that white line, I'm on the road. You know what I mean? And I'm in my lane. And that is God for us. He's way better than a white line, but keep your eyes on the Lord. Keep your eyes on the Lord. Okay. That's the only way not to get hit. And that's the only way not to swerve into the storm and into the oncoming traffic. Okay. Keep your eyes on the Lord. And the way to do that is by being in the word and being in prayer every single day, no matter what you have to do. All of you have made New Year's resolutions to be more healthy, to make sure you're, sticking to your schedules, to, get your hustle done, but Martin Luther says, I have so much to do today. I'm going to stay in prayer for the first 3 hours. And that's how we have to live. Okay. That's the way you're going to be victorious, is if you have so much to do today, but you stay in prayer for the first 3 hours. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you have a great start to your new year, and live victorious. And the only way that you're going to do that, non-valiant warrior, is to submit to the Lord and let him wear you as a glove. So blessings. Let him.